Here we go. Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Motivators podcast. Today is a very, very special episode with moms, which is my favorite thing in the world because I am a mama's boy. And today we are joined with Emaley McCulloch, Suzanne Juzwik, Miranda Dodson, and Kelly Baird. I would love for you guys to introduce yourselves to our community so everyone gets to know you a little bit more and your journey as well with your children.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, I'll start. I'm Emaley McCulloch, Chief Clinical Officer at Motivity, but I'm also a behavior analyst and a mom of a young adult with autism. When I was in the field already for many years, I had my son, and when he was about 2 years old, we started to see signs, but I kind of ignored them because I thought I was like overanalyzing the situation. And I had some friends and colleagues kind of nudge me and have him assessed. And he was diagnosed at the age of 3. He was diagnosed before they had the levels. So, but I would say he's doing great. He's started community college and has a part-time job. And he's really, really grateful to have this perspective of both a professional and a parent.
And I'll go next. Hi, I'm Suzanne Juzwik, and I am a mom of an 11-year-old autistic daughter, and I also am neurodivergent. Likely, I have ADHD and possibly undiagnosed autism. And I am a BCBA. I was a former special ed teacher that fell into ABA and just loved it. And I've been working in the field for about 20 years. I became a BCBA in 2012, had my daughter 2014. And within the first 9 months to a year, I knew she was autistic because I had worked in early intervention in California. And then we started our struggle of trying to get my daughter with autism diagnosed because girls don't always get identified. So we did 2 rounds of diagnostic evaluations, and she was formally diagnosed level 3 when on her 3rd birthday.
Hey, I'm Kelly Baird. I'm a behavior analyst. I'm a space creator. I'm the founder of Black Women in Behavior Analysis Appreciation Day. We recently hosted an in-person conference in February, which was phenomenal. I'm also the vice president of ABA Versus Block Party. We host a lot of events and just bring fun and uniqueness and camaraderie into the field of ABA with events. And I'm also the co-founder of the ABA Collab, and that's essentially these 3 powerhouse orgs, Black Men in Behavior Analysis, ABA Versus, Black We Bad. We recently put on the Behavior Technician Conference over the last weekend, and that was phenomenal. So shout out to Behavior University for that. As a space creator and one just, I love the aspect of empowering clinicians. I am also a mom of a child on the spectrum. My son is 7 years old. He's non-vocal. We found out pretty early on in my pregnancy that it wasn't a normal pregnancy. They noticed that his ventricles were his head was also larger. It was pretty abnormal size. We had an option to terminate as well, but given our values, we chose not to do that. We chose not to go that route. We didn't know it would turn into autism. I mean, there are other things going on with him, but he was diagnosed around the age of 2, and it was around the time of COVID during the pandemic. We noticed that he wasn't hitting his milestones. Just a lot of things. He also has cavernomas. Essentially, those are raspberry-sized, like not tumors, but they're in his brain, numerous, and he has to, get CAT scans every, so often. We have to keep an eye on that for seizure activity. With him being 7 years old, he's so cute. He's getting older. It can be a challenge and a handful. I do appreciate being invited here on this platform to speak with you, other phenomenal moms. Just having the perspective of being a mom of a child and advocating for him, as well as being a behavior analyst and supporting clients and clinicians as well. I just have a different perspective about all of this, and I absolutely love the community here, and I appreciate Motivity for inviting me so that we can have these conversations, because they're real on the day-to-day basis, minute to minute sometimes. Thank you.
I don't have any letters after my name. just a, just a mom, and actually former musician, so in a totally different kind of world. But I'm honored to be able to be the mother of a child with autism. She's now 11. She was diagnosed at age 4, and she had some speech delays and developmental delays before that, that kind of started us toward the diagnosis. Being a girl, and she's level, I guess on the level, she's a level 1. So she had some skills and lacked others. And so I was really grateful to be able to get her diagnosed early. We lived in Austin, Texas at the time, so there's a lot of resources in a big city, which is helpful. And I didn't even know what ABA was at the time. And so learned through a friend, found a really great clinic there that's a natural environment play-based center. Didn't even know what that was, but I was like, hey, this looks like a happy place. And it was profoundly helpful and just a really wonderful experience for us. She made a ton of progress, began speaking, having meaningful conversations, able to tell us what she needed, which I know is called manding now, which I didn't know then. So fast forward, she goes through ABA. We then move out to a rural part of East Texas, to my husband's hometown out here, and we realized that none of those resources really exist. Even getting a diagnosis is extremely difficult out here. And so we just realized, what would we have done if we lived in this area and didn't have these resources? And so felt the divine nudge to do something about it. And so my husband's an entrepreneur, has a very high risk tolerance. And so we started TAG Learning Center, and it's an ABA early intervention center. And but there were no RBTs. There was only 2 BCBAs in our area. And so it was a real pioneering effort. But now we're 3 years in, and we're still small, but we want to make sure that we're doing it right. And Motivity has been such a huge part of that, part of our story. And so my daughter now is doing well. She's thriving. She still has autism, but she her challenges are a little different now. And so that mama bear that all of us have inside of us, you continue to fight for them to just be comfortable with who they are, know their strengths and their areas that they're going to need to work a little harder on, and continue to fight for them. So I love helping families. I love helping parents go from alone and scared to feeling like they're a part of a community, knowing they're not alone, and able to advocate for their child. So that's really the joy that I have found in this world. So happy to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Amazing. Thank you guys so much for joining us today and sharing a little bit of your story. Being moms in this field, because everybody here is in the ABA field, I would love to know how being a mom shaped the way that you approach either your professional role in ABA or even on autism services. Whoever wants to go first, maybe.
I can start. I can start with this. I think I had been practicing in this space for about 7-8 years before my son was diagnosed. And I would say I was also it was early in my career, so I was also still learning to be a professional. And once I received the diagnosis and my son started receiving services and also had a behavior analyst and professionals, I right away could see things that I didn't like that I did as a professional. And I didn't understand why, without being in that seat, without being in that role as a parent, I didn't understand how it felt to be on the other side when you have a professional maybe setting certain expectations that are not really that reasonable, or some of the shame that comes around being able, like just having to live your life, but also, make sure you're not reinforcing this behavior, or, when he's having a tantrum, don't give into it. And, sometimes you're a mom and you have to get from point A to point B, and you don't have time to do a full, like, planned ignoring token board system, like as you're trying to survive. It really helped me understand what I can do to help parents a little bit more in terms of well-being, and appreciating the small moments of success. And I'm really grateful for that. And I think there were times where I actually called some of the parents that I worked with early on and just said, I'm sorry. Like, anyway, that's what I'd have to say.
I'll go. I would say that this is a kind of loaded question because it depends what hat I'm wearing. And um, it's kind of one of those things where you put on your BCBA hat, you put on your mom hat, you take that off, maybe you're an advocate, and sometimes you can't be all of them at once. And so I would say that just starting off right away, one of the things that I saw that affected me greatly was that people, when I reached out, when I still continue to reach out for services, I don't hide that I'm a BCBA. I don't want people not to know. But at the same time, I mean, I remember the first time I reached out to a company and they thought I was the clinic director at another regional company in Illinois at the time, and they thought I was trying to poach information. And even though I was just asking to be, to start the intake process for my daughter who was recently diagnosed, and I received like a nasty email from the clinic director at that time. And so that was like one of the first experiences I had where I don't fit well with just autism parents. I also don't fit well with just BCBAs. And so I kind of found this place where I didn't know any other BCBAs that were also moms of people with disabilities or on the spectrum at the time. Now it's a little bit more common that you're starting to find people, but just the fact that there's so many of us here that work in the ABA industry, and, whether you're a BCBA or not, even Miranda, like we are all actively in the AV industry, and we have a unique perspective. Like when I go to parent support groups through like the Autism Society or something, it's really challenging for me not to also feel like I need to provide answers when people are like just talking about parenting. And then I'm like, I didn't get anything. All I did was give. And then that was, parent support groups are supposed to be like supportive. So I think it's been a challenge. I'll say that.
Yeah, to that, I would just say I'm a parent first. I'm a parent first, and I can totally connect with families on those levels where if they are late to a meeting or if some of the targets aren't being met at home, I totally understand that, because as Emaley said, some days it's just you have to just get through the day. So I think that I can make a really strong connection with families to that degree where that patience is there. You never really know all of the contextual variables that take place at home or in other settings with your kiddos. I'm a behavior analyst, but my kiddo is not perfect. So, I mean, because behaviors just happen, people do what they want to do. And I can't, am I like the 100% best parent, best BCBA? If it's based on meeting all of the targets, then I would just have to say, I'm human. So I just see it from that angle. Definitely the science is a big deal in having data, and I love this science. I really do. There is a human aspect of it that I respect, and that's all I have to say about that. Really, just you're human, and as long as your kiddo is happy, then that's what matters. My kiddo at the end of the day is happy.
That's all that
Yeah.
matters.
Yes, and safe. Yes.
Yeah. What about you, Miranda?
I think for me, and I mean, I'm in a unique position because I'm not the provider, I'm not the clinician. But I think for our context, both on the clinical side, I think it's a huge bonus that I know how the parents feel. Both on, like, even when we're having our leadership meetings, I can say, kind of speak for the parents. I see it on them. I see their anxiety. I understand, like, living your life at home and that you can't have that fidelity. And then so I think I am a good bridge between our BCBAs and the parents. And even for the parents, because I remember going into my daughter's clinic and I didn't know what these acronyms meant. I didn't know what the science was. And it's such a deep, discipline. And it is difficult without doing a lot of training to, like, help them understand. And even things like their expectations, like, typical development looks like this, but I'm like, for us, it's up, it's down, it's, 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, and helping them understand that is normal in our atypical world, and to not be worried, or like understanding more of I really wanted the parents to understand more of the principles behind ABA, so that it made sense to them, that they would go, okay, well, there's this change happen, so we're going to see an increase in behavior here. That is our experience as parents and as families of neurodiverse children. That's kind of our new thing. And I think just being able to be a kind of an advocate for them as the parent, I think has been helpful for our practice. And then on the parent level, I think understanding behavior, I almost feel like every parent should take an ABA class, because it's how all humans learn, right? This isn't just because they are in their unique position. This is how all humans learn. And so I think even helping parents understand the practice of ABA is a human thing. And that, like you said, Kelly, the science is the science. And how we implement it, I think, can be really, really helpful, or it can be, unfortunately, at times harmful if we don't do it correctly. And so helping parents understand that, why fidelity is really important. And the thing that I realized too is, like, parents are a silver bullet in this world. Like, if the parent, like, is activated and jumps on board, like, their kids take off. It wasn't just my experience. I see it happen in our clinic. So, like, supporting parents, parent training, being understanding when they have a flat tire, when they're late, when people are sick, like giving and receiving that grace to one another. It really, I feel like, to be successful, it takes that kind of family mentality, that we're going to link arms and do this together. So being a parent on both sides of that, I think, is what is really, really helpful in the care that we give. So
Interesting. So if you could go back, we'll go a little bit back in time and speak to yourself on the day that you got the diagnosis. Like, what words of encouragement or hope would you offer at that time?
I can go. I do this on social media, TikTok a lot now. I have, um, So one of the things I tell parents when they are newly diagnosed is that their child is still their child. The only thing that's changed is that they now have a label, which means that they can have some answers about things and learn some more information. But their child is still the amazing, beautiful, wonderful child that it always was before that. And I wish I had somebody, to tell me that too. I, my I think because I knew my daughter was going to be diagnosed with autism at such an early age, like around 9 months to a year, and she is really impacted. And she does have a slew of other things. When we first went to the diagnosis and we walked away and they said, well, she qualifies for autism, but we're not going to diagnose her. I was livid. That was like, as a BCBA, and she was 2 years of age at that time, I was like, you were literally telling me that like you're denying my daughter access to services right now. And that was so challenging because they basically said, like, we want you to rule out all these other things. And at the time I was mad, but then I went to do the other testing, and we did find out she has a very rare genetic disorder that only 1% of the world has. It's a deletion, doesn't have a name. And because of that, we found out she has heart defects and other things, and now she has seizures as well. So I'm grateful for that moment, but I really wish that the person would have still diagnosed her because we lost a year of therapy and, you know, sorry.
No, take your time.
Yeah. So, especially as a BCBA, you're like, that is so important, So, I mean, I think I recognize right now that like whether she had that or not, her outcome would likely still be the same because she is profoundly autistic. So that's all.
So again, yeah, that's Suzanne. I totally empathize where you're coming from with that because I feel that the amount of support and services needed in that young age is so important. The first 5 years of life, the first 3 years is very important. And to not get services or access to that, that's hard. I totally understand where you're coming from on that. It was a bit interesting on the timing. During my pregnancy, we knew there was something that his brain was not developing normally. And then he was diagnosed around the age of 2, and that was during the pandemic when there was the shutdown. And so people weren't able to get out and get access to things. So there was a delay on his diagnosis and being checked out. At that time, he wasn't speaking any words either. Obviously, he's utilizing an AAC device at this time, luckily, but we were just relieved once we received that diagnosis because we knew that he would be allotted so many additional supports and services. Even though I thought that the diagnosis was a little delayed only because of the circumstance of being in the pandemic. I know that we could have gotten it sooner. So we were lucky to that degree. Again, with that diagnosis, we were able to get services, but those were very limited too in that time frame during the pandemic. We could not get in-person services. So I do feel that that a lot of maybe learning milestones were impacted because we didn't get the help that we needed. Even to this day, it's just kind of sparse to get the level of support that you need. And I'm a behavior analyst. You know, you would think that you have all of the resources in hand, but I don't. So it's really hard. I was relieved to get that diagnosis for my kiddo, only because it allows access to supports. I don't care too much for the label. It is something that I'd want my son to, when he gets older, not to worry about. And it's something that I'm also working on too, you know, be proud. It's also something he doesn't have to share with the world if he doesn't want to. I'm still in that space where, you know, you want to respect a person's, you know, medical history, and even being on this platform and sharing that my son has autism, that's basically disclosing a medical stuff. But I have realized he is getting older, and since he is getting older, and you can also see that he's using an AAC device. So it's kind of like optic wise, you can tell that he is atypical. So
Yeah, I hear you on that. Um, I used to always keep my professional life with totally separate from my personal life. And I would always talk to the providers that my daughter worked with and her teachers and staff that I'm her mom, I'm not her BCBA. And like you said earlier, mom first, you know. So I totally get that. And I think what I kind of also evolved was it started to get harder to keep everything separate. And as my daughter continued to age but not progress, I started realizing how few services are available, especially past the age of 6. We live in Wisconsin now, and majority of providers only serve until 6. And so I have to be an advocate now, and that's why I also serve on multiple boards and do a lot of advocacy. So
That's amazing. So, Miranda, would you have any words for yourself if you could go back in time on the like, or you could go back on the day of the diagnosis, like any words of encouragement you would give yourself that day?
I like vividly remember reading the assessment and getting the diagnosis, and I also cried out of relief um, because we knew what it was, and we can now, there's something we can do about it. You know, it's not just, she's just not, you know, it's not just a speech delay. You know,
Mm,
there's some answers behind that. And also I find it interesting that though we don't have a diagnosis of a genetic anomaly, there are indications that there's some sort of a genetic component. And we spoke to a geneticist, we just haven't done the DNA testing yet. So, you know, there's a whole world ahead of us, but I I was relieved because I wanted to be able to do something to help her. And so but what I would tell myself is become an expert in your child. Yes, use the resources that are out there and the education that is out there. But as her parent, I feel like my primary job is to advocate for her. So work on those skills. And so everything from, there's really wonderful nonprofits. There's actually one in Austin that I became good friends with the director of. It's called Vela Families, and they have a lot of really amazing resources, and they like teach you how to put together a book so that you can take it to all of your child appointments, and just how to become an advocate for your child. So, and I would say you're not alone. There are awesome, strong parents out there fighting for their kids. And then I would also say, she's going to teach you how to be more human. So all these preconceived notions of what being a human is like, or the value of normal, she's going to teach you a much more beautiful world. So it is hard. There are fears, but I think I'm a much better mom to all of my children, and a much better wife, and a much better boss, a much better director. And so many beautiful things have come out of that diagnosis for me, and for her, and she's embraced it. She is able to understand she's autistic. We have friends, like adults that are autistic, that we've hooked up with, so she sees that she's not alone. She knows that that lots of people are just like her, and that she's fearfully and wonderfully made, and she's a beautiful human. And so I'm grateful. It's brought a lot of joy into our lives, even though there's a lot of hardship as well. So
what's one resource or like community or moment of kindness that throughout your whole journey that you felt made a big difference?
Don't mind going again. Like I said, I feel like I had always been alone in like my own journey as a parent of a child with autism and also being a BCBA. And it took a long time, but one of the resources that I found in the state of Wisconsin when we moved here from Illinois, was this group called We Fly, which is Wisconsin Family Leadership Institute. And it's not autism only, it's parents of children and guardians of children that have intellectual disability or any physical disability. But they did a whole like leadership, and they still continue to do this. It's a leadership support group, and you go and do like a couple courses or live and remote courses. They pay for your hotel, your stay. They'll help even pay for childcare, and you basically learn how to effectively advocate for your child and for other people like your child. And not just advocate like with the school or with providers, but also with like state legislators or federal legislators to help make sure that like kids like your kid, are continuing to getting the services and supports they need. But what was so beautiful about it was making friends of other parents and like finding a community. So that was great.
Amazing.
One large community, and I'm gonna say this is where I used to work at this place, and it's where I learned how to advocate, and I learned what a great work culture is. It's DDRB, Developmental Disabilities Resource Board. It's in St. Charles, Missouri. Essentially, it's comprised of a number of case managers that support families that have Medicaid waiver, just a lot of different services, but advocate for families. And I was a case manager there and worked for a lot of families, and many 17 and above, or I'm sorry, 16 and above, because our kids will be adults one day, and the level of support needed for adults, that remains, and the help is not as much, and that's really unfortunate. And I always think about the future and how this will impact my son, because at this point, yes, he will need services, and he's going to need help for the rest of his life. That organization taught me to advocate, and it's such a great community and resource. They have hundreds, thousands of supports, agencies and connections and networking. So I highly advise families when they think about their kids and how it'll look as an adult, to look into case management, their local case management, and see how that transition will support their kiddo into adulthood. And this is a conversation to have during when your kid is in high school. Just know that look into case management That's my advice, because the adults that I worked with and supported were thriving. Many of them lived in their own homes. They worked, married, drive, had social lives, just regular, just doing regular day-to-day things. So I'd highly advise people to do that. Think about the future, how your kiddo will be as an adult, because autism does not stop at 18.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, and I can jump in as a parent of an adult. I think it's also a joyful experience because you get to see them turn into like a full-grown human and see what their just personality and what they love to talk about all the time. And you know, that's one thing that's kind of so cool about people on the spectrum, is that they have such deep passions about subjects, and they become, you know, experts in that subject. And then that's a lot of time that's their love language, right? Is that they want other people to love it as much as they love it, even if they don't understand why you don't. Right? Want to talk about it for an hour or experience it for an hour. But just, I would say, like, immerse yourself into what they love as much as possible. Because you'll be able to see what excites them. And that's really a good part about growing up with, or living or being with an adult with autism, is seeing that passion.
Yeah.
Love it.
I can go real quick. I think that I've had many moments of compassion and kindness, and moments of profound understanding. And I love like learning. We're all learners. We continue to learn. So I do think that, like, profoundly, when I first discovered her diagnosis, you know, I had a hope that one day she would be indiscernible, you know, as an autistic person, or, you know, you don't know what the future holds, but that's the hope of a parent early on. And I think over the years, I really appreciate that so many people have loved her exactly how she is made. And that's taught me that, like, that is the better path. And that's the more true path, is that she is who she is. And she's beautiful, and normal is boring. And, you know, when I said the joke earlier that she's still autistic, that was a joke. You know, she is who she is. Her brain is made the way that it's made, and and I appreciate her so much. I think I've changed more than anything. She's a hard worker. She's learned how to work really hard just to, like, function, you know. So she just, like, has that worker mentality, and I just admire that so much. She's resilient, you know, just all of these things that come along with the diagnosis that I just would have never understood or known. And I think it really is surrounding yourself with communities that have that same understanding, help you change, help your heart change, help your mind open, help the possibilities open, and the world truly becomes a more beautiful place. So I do think back to our clinic that we first encountered, and just the joy that was bubbling up, and the positivity. And, like, when she graduated, they had a little cap and gown, and she had, like, an award, and she was the Creative Cat Award. Like, she loved to draw, and so they saw these beautiful aspects of her and her personality, and they celebrated that. So I think I'm fortunate that there's been many moments, but for other families out there, I would just say, find your community that fosters that joy, that sees your child in all of their beauty and strengths and celebrates them. So it's not just about what they can't do. It's like who they are, and who in celebrating that. So that's been profoundly helpful for me.
Amazing. So to finish it off in a way that, I know it's a short episode, but if we have moms that are in the beginning of this path, I would love to know what would be a message that you would like to give them or some reassurance that you would love to leave with other moms who might be at the beginning of this path? And I would love to hear from everyone, of course.
One thing that I think of is that you never know how your child's going to progress. You just don't. None of us have crystal balls. And what's oddly interesting about our this time period right now is everything that's going on with legislation and the federal government. So I think just take a moment, still, take it in, breathe, sit with the fact that your child is your child. And I know someone mentioned earlier that they will progress on their own trajectory. So it's always best not to do comparisons of other kids, whether it's your family or friends or kids at the playground. I remember one year my daughter was swinging. She loves swings, and next to us was a little baby who was already talking, and my daughter still doesn't talk. And that brought me to tears. I'm gonna sound like I'm crying all the time, but sometimes you do. A really smart autism parent once told me that we go through grief cycles constantly. So whether it is a milestone that's missed, or like I said, the comparison. And so there's, this constant cycle, and sometimes you don't know what's going to trigger it, whether it's a missed graduation or not being able to learn to drive, or, whatever you thought for your kid. But at the same time, if you just focus on your kid, there's so many things that they will learn to do. And they are beautiful and wonderful, and their world is so nice. So, and since I am representing a level 3 child right now, profoundly autistic, her outcome is that she will always need support. But I know that at the same time, I know what makes her happy, and that she can have a nice, fulfilling, satisfied life as long as everyone around her, treats her with respect and knows and understands her as well. So, just find your people, celebrate all the successes and joys. And definitely don't do comparison. Comparison is the thief of joy. So.
Mhm.
Okay.
I can go next. Suzanne. Yeah, the comparison. I would say that you are selected for a reason to be the parent, and it will make you a better human, because it forces you to look at things from a different perspective. It just makes you become this beautiful human being. I do totally understand the grievance cycle of the missed opportunities, or the dreams that you might have had for your kid might be gone. But there's also this resilience that you learn to develop, because you have to continue to push through, and you see the beauty in your child, and you have to advocate for that. And I think it's also important that, and this might be a challenge, but also pour into yourself when you can, even during times when it's hard. The hardest moments, it is okay to walk away for a second, so that you can keep your sanity. Um, Everything will be okay. There will be hard times. Just know that other people are also going through it, and understand there are communities out there. People do understand, and that you're not alone. I know we may say this a lot, but you're not alone. continue to pour into yourself if you can, when you can, so that you can be the best mom that you can be.
Amazing words,
Yeah.
Kelly. Miranda, anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with everything that you both said. I know it's difficult sometimes when you have children with, the spectrum is very unique to each child, and so the outcomes are going to be just as unique for each child. So I definitely agree, and I would say regardless of the functional capacity or what the future holds for your child, I do think I agree with you that there are cycles of grief. And so I would just encourage any parent to grieve them, feel them. That's okay. Don't feel like you have to be superhuman, and also listen to yourself if it's starting to tip into depression or things like that, and ask for help from your support group. But I definitely think we all need support groups. So if you don't have one, whether it's in a formal or family, I would say that's going to be very important for you and for your child. And then I think I would say, just don't be afraid of what the future holds. So I think I still am. She's only 11. So, I love on the spectrum is I can't look away, but it's also hard to watch kind of thing for me. People ask me about it, and I'll watch shows like that, or, and I'm encouraged by the parents and the families and the individuals, but also grieve, it's hard. So it's complicated. So I would encourage parents to get counseling if that's something that they're able to do, just to work through that. And like Kelly said, just it's okay to take a breather, to walk away, and just take care of yourself. I think it's a very stressful situation to be in. But then I do think, man, when the celebrations come, celebrate just as hard. So any type of new thing, even with my kiddo, when she'll say something that only an autistic brain would say it, but it's so right on, it's so on point that you're like that. And even just early on, she was thinking through things that are natural and more intuitive for other people that they don't understand as acutely. So yeah, just celebrate those moments, show them that hey, that was unique, that was exceptional what you just did, so that they understand their strengths as well. So yeah, celebrate the victories. It's okay to grieve and to process your feelings, but do so in community, in a support group.
Amazing. Thank you. Emaley, any last words that you would like to add?
I would just like to say Happy Mother's Day.
Yes.
I have been around and surrounded by autism moms for a greater portion of my life. And I mean, autism moms they're just so badass. They're just there.
Yes.
There for their children. There's nothing more powerful than the love of a mother. And thanks for coming on today and putting this together, Mark.
Oh no, thank you guys for coming today and just being incredible. Honestly, from this side, I'm just always amazed by the power of women, and moms is a love that I know my mom would turn the world around for me. So I know that power that hides and shows in all of you. So thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. And I know your kids are incredibly blessed to have incredible women and professional like you taking care of them. So you guys are very blessed, and so are they. Thank you guys so much for joining. Thank you for joining the Motivators podcast, and I'll see you guys very, very soon. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Bye.